I've got my camp shirt on, do you? This is another tutorial made for the virtual junk journal camp retreat that was held between June 13th and June 16th, and I've done several tutorials, and here is another one. This one is a mixed media tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to use a gel press, different types of paint, and then we're going to make something with those gel printed pages at the end. So let's get started. So what I've got here is an 8x10 and a 5x7 gel press, and I have the links in the description box for this. Now do realize if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click the little gear below this video and change the speed to 2 times the speed to get through it faster. So I'm trying to make this as concise as possible. If you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube, my Facebook, checked out my website, my Facebook groups, please do so. Again, check out the links in the description box. And throughout this video, if you have questions, ask those. I am here to help you. I will be doing a live premiere on Facebook so that we can answer those questions at the same time. All right, so 2 gel plates. Then I've got a couple of kinds of paint here. One is the Master's Touch, what I call a fine acrylic paint. And I've got 3 colors. That is ocean green, light purple, and milky white. And I thought I would show the differences between using the artist grade paint and the crafter's paint. So I have the Anita's all-purpose acrylic paint. And I think it's funny that I have 3 different sizes of bottles here. But I have cream, light turquoise, and I believe this one is, I can't read it, iris maybe? There's paint over it. So I thought I would show how it would look on different, with the different paints. And then I've got a rubber brayer. It's a soft rubber brayer. I've got a craft mat underneath so that the paint will clean up off my surface. Then I've got some book pages just that I've torn out of a book. And then I've also got standard copy paper, just white copy paper that I will use for the gel printing. I'm going to go ahead and put my apron on so that I don't get paint on my camp t-shirt. This is a well-loved apron. My husband embroidered it for me, and it has served its purpose well of keeping paint and dirty stuff off my clothes so I don't lose my clothes. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to make some gel prints here. We're going to use some stencils, we're going to use some mark making tools, and then we'll go into making something with those prints. I've got a piece of paper that I'm just laying over here to the side that I'll use to clean off my brayer. So let's start with the acrylic artist grade paint. So I'm going to just take a little bit of this and make a couple of dots on my gel plates. I'm going to use both the light purple and the turquoise, and I'm not putting a whole bunch on there. It may look like it. I'm just touching it to the plates, and then I'm going to use my brayer to kind of mix those around and fill up the whole plate with paint. All right, so then I'm just going to take my brayer and clean it off on the piece of paper that I have over here on the side so that it's ready to go. And then I'm going to grab some tools here, and I think what I'm going to do is, let's just, for the fun of it, the first one, I'm just using some large size bubble wrap. Save that bubble wrap that you get in packages, or ask your friends to save it. So I'm just going to press this to the gel plate, kind of making sure that it touches all over. And then I'm going to lift it up, and that's going to reveal the color underneath. Now if I have the space, I can take this and press it to another piece of paper, and I'm going to get a neat texture. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over here on the little gel press, and it's going to leave a cool texture as well. I see a spot that it missed, so I'm going to just kind of touch it to it. And then I'll just set this aside for just a moment. Now, when you're gel printing, It's a little bit different technique because you're doing it in reverse order. So you're putting down the thing that's going to be seen on top, and then you'll put other colors behind it. So I'm letting this dry just a moment, because if you start to add more paint on top of this while it's still really wet, then it will just kind of smear and turn to mud. So I'm just going to let this set for a moment, and then I will come back and I'm going to add a layer of milky white paint, and then we'll print these so you can see what it looks like. Okay, I think this is set long enough, though the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some ivory or cream colored acrylic paint. I forgot to open it, so I'm doing that to the plates. So I'm just going to add a little bit of paint here, and then I'm going to use my brayer to spread it out over the whole plate. What this is doing is reactivating the layers of paint that are underneath, so that when we go to print, the whole thing will come up. So I'm going to go ahead and lay a sheet of paper on top of this. I'm just going to press it very carefully, trying not to move the paper. I'm just pushing my hands on top of it to help get the paint to adhere to the paper. Then I'm going to go ahead, while this is sitting here for a moment, I'm going to add some cream paint to the smaller palette. I like using the two different size palettes because I can get a couple at the same time. Sometimes if you're waiting on the paint to dry, you can keep going by using the second palette, but it's not necessary. I'm just going to grab a book page and lay that on top. I'm going to let these sit for just a moment, and I'll be right back. All right, so this has been setting for a minute or so. I can go faster, but sometimes if I'm trying to get a really nice print, I like to let it sit just a little bit longer, especially if you end up using too much paint, which I have a tendency to do. So now I'm just going to gently lift it off of the plate. And then here is our print. Now this is using the artist grade paint, and it's still wet, but it's going to have a little bit of a shinier surface than the craft paint. So there's the first print. We'll set this aside to dry. And then let's lift the other one. Now this one, I had too much paint, and so it's basically just lifted the ivory paint off the top. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take another sheet of paper, because I think it might still be wet enough that if I lay this down, I can get more than one print. Sometimes you can do that. So here's what it looks like on the book page coming through. So you get the white paint behind there, and it obscures the text just a little bit. So this is where you can use all those pieces of paper that you probably don't like, or they were used for something else, like a newsletter or something you got in the mail, junk mail. You can cover it with a coat of paint, and then you'll be able to use it later on. Okay, I'm going to print some more off camera in the same color scheme, so I have enough for the project that we're going to do at the end. All right, so this time I'm going to use the same color schemes, but we're going to use a stencil instead of the bubble wrap. So I'm just putting a little bit of paint again on the palettes, and then I'm going to use my brayer to smooth it all out. We're going to use the diamonds stencil, so I'm just going to lay that onto the plate. And normally I have like a piece of paper that I've already coated with maybe a solid color. I don't have one this time, so I'm just going to take my copy paper and lay it on top and pick up through the stencil the paint that you see on top. So we've got a background now that we can use. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the stencil, and I'm going to lay it on top of the smaller, and I've got some pieces of paper that I have printed on. Try to find one that, okay, this will go better. Trying to find one that matched. So this is where I just rolled off my brayer onto a piece, And I'm just going to put it on here and again rub through that stencil. So here's what it looks like putting it on top of the other. So I'll set this aside to dry. I'm going to go ahead and remove the stencil, and then I have a cake pan over here to the side that's got water in it. So I'm just going to put the stencil down in there so it can dry or clean off and not get so much paint on top of it. So this has been setting for just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of some ivory paint over here. I got way too much, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of do both plates at the same time. And I'm just going to lay the papers on top and lift the paint here in just a moment. So here's with the diamond texture on there. It's kind of fun the way these all come out because you never really know for sure how they're going to turn out. I can do the same technique over and over and over, and I'll get a different result each time. So that's what this one looks like. It's really muted. It's pale. I'm going to do a couple more of these so that I can have extras for the project that we're going to make. Alright, so I took the stencil out of the water and dried it just a little bit, and I'm going to lay it on top, and we're going to pick up again like we did before. Now I'm just putting a layer of white. I'll do the same on the small plate, and then we'll lift those. It's so pretty how this turns out. I don't know, I just like it. I hope you're enjoying seeing these. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the acrylic craft paint and do the same techniques to kind of show the differences. I'll put them on the screen at the end showing which ones are which, so you kind of get an idea of how they look. And I used way too much paint, so I'm just going to transfer it to the other palette. I've got way too much paint on the plate, so I'm just going to rub off some of it with my brayer, just running it across it a few times onto a scrap piece of paper. Okay, so now I'm going to take the bubble wrap like we did on the others and just press it to the gel plate. I'm going to give it a moment to dry, and then I will put some cream paint on top. Alright, this is sat hopefully long enough, and I won't put too much paint on it, so I'm just going to put a little bit of the ivory paint, and then I'll spread it on both palettes. Alright, so now I'm going to lift this one. Alright, so this one using the craft paint is a little bit more what I call chalky or matte. And if we look at, of course, they're not the exact same colors, but you hopefully can see the difference that the acrylic artist grade paint has a more of a shine to it. And I think the colors mix a little differently, but you get two different types of looks using the different types of paint. And I kind of like both of them. It just depends on what I'm doing. And sometimes I mix them together. And here is the smaller one, and then this is comparing it to the other paint. So you kind of see that there's some similarities, and they're also very different. So I'm going to print a few more so that I'll have them for the project at the end. Okay, I just wanted to show y'all that all I do is I take my plates to the sink and I wash them with water, maybe a little bit of mild soap. I do not use a scrubbing thing because you can scratch your gel plate. And then I put it back in the clamshells that they came in. Some artists will just stack them one on top of the other if they've got a shelf that they can put them on, and then close the cabinets or something so you don't get dust on it. So those are all cleaned up. I also just kind of washed the stencil so it is clean-ish. I'm okay that it's stained just a little bit. If you really want to get this paint off, you can scrub it or let it soak for a while in some really nice soapy water. So I'm just going to set this aside as well. And it's the same with my brayer. I just wash it. I kind of scrub it sometimes. Alright, so here's the prints that we made. So I went ahead and I made some with the craft paint. So that's over here on my left. These are all the craft paint prints. And then this was using the artist grade paint on my right. So I just used a whole bunch of paper so that I could have these. While I'm at it, I'm going to take these to my scanner and I'm going to scan these in. I'm going to create a digital download that'll be available in my shop. So if you don't have a gel print, gel plate, and you want to have this look, you can buy the digital download. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be right back. All right, so I've scanned these in and I've selected a few of them. Here's what we're going to make. I've got a couple of versions of this. So I was watching G. Kerr, I think it is. I will make sure that I have her name in the description box or I'll put it across the screen. She was showing a letter or an envelope that she made, and I thought I would show my version because I thought with mixed media, this is a great way to use up those pages. So here is a large gel print. So that's what's on this side, is one of the large gel prints that I trimmed off the white areas on the paper. And then on the other side, I attached some more gel prints and made little pockets for this little checkbook envelope, if you will. And I'm going to show you how to put this together. So let's look at it. So again, I've got 3 gel prints here selected, and I just chose the ones that I just made for the colors that they have. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off the white area on the big gel print. While I'm at it, I'm going to trim down the smaller gel prints to be the same size as the big one as far as the width is concerned. Since these gel prints have a border around them and I want to kind of distress those and get them to blend together, I'm going to go around the edges. I'm using walnut stain and a blending tool, and I'm just going to blend right around the edges of all these gel prints. And then I'm just looking at these gel prints trying to decide which way I want to put them. And what I'm going to do is start on one edge and then go to the other. I'm just going to adhere them down with some Aleene's tacky glue. This is a great way to use up those pieces of paper that, you know, they weren't really that pretty, but you can alter them just a little bit by adding some acrylic paint. And then we're also going to do some stamping on this. So right now I'm just gluing this down onto the back side of the larger gel print. And then I'm going to match up this edge and glue it down going the other direction. And then I'll flip this over, and since there's just a little bit that's on the other side, I'm just going to fold it to the front, if you will. And I'll glue this down. Since I was off just a little bit here on this side, I'm just going to take my Distress ink and go over that edge and kind of cover up that white area. So now I've got this piece of paper that I've kind of got, in a sense, as a natural envelope flap right here. And what I'm going to do is fold this up. And I think what I found before, the size-wise, is almost 4 inches tall is what I liked. So I'm just going to go ahead and go up to the 4-inch mark using my mat here, increase that. And then I'm going to take the top portion and then just fold it over on top. So there's the beginnings of our envelope right there. Isn't that pretty cute just to start with? And you could leave it like this if you want and write inside of it, and you don't have to go any further, but we're going to add some more embellishment to this. All right, so I know that I want a pocket to go inside here, and I'm going to make 2 pockets. And what I've got is a couple of extra pieces of paper here, and I'm going to fold those in half, and then I'm going to glue them together. So I'm going to do 2 of these. And the reason being is I'm trying to use up these book pages that I've torn out of books. The paper is rather thin, so I'm trying to make it a little bit thicker because I'm going to use it as a pocket and I want it to be sturdy. So there's one, and I'll do another. So now what I'm going to do is take this gel print, I'm going to cut it in half, lengthwise. Basically, I'm just creasing it so I know where the halfway part is, and then I'm just going to cut it. Now what I'm going to do is, with the fold at the top, I'm going to lay my gel print on top of there and adhere these together. And I'll just trim off the excess, and I'm going to repeat this on the other pocket that we're creating. So now I'm just going to go over the edges of these two pieces with some distress ink as well. Now that I've got all these little pieces ready, what I'm going to do now is use some archival ink, and I've got the postmark collage, and I'm going to ink this up, and I'm going to stamp it over all the little pieces just to add a little bit more texture. And I'm not going to stamp the inside, but I am going to look at how I want this to look when it's folded up, and I want to stamp on this one, so I'm going to stamp in here. And I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to stamp on this side. And I want a little bit of stamping on this edge here, so I'm going to fold it, but I don't want to come all the way down. So I'm just going to stamp right on the top part, just adding a little bit more texture there. Then I've got the Shabby Stitches stamp set, and this is one of the zigzag stitches. And I'm going to go all the way around and stamp to give the appearance of stitches. And since this is a white area here, I'm going to go ahead and stamp in that area as well. On the inside, I'm going to cover up part of this area and this area, so I just want to stamp across, which will be the top flap here, and down the sides. And if you want, you could stamp across this area. It'll be slightly seen, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to stamp down this side and this side. I'm not going to worry about the bottom because it's going to be covered up. And then I'm going to stamp all the way around these two pieces that will be pockets. Alright, now that I've got those stamped, this part is going to go over here. So I like to put my fingers where I know I need to put glue, or not put glue, so I don't make it into a pocket. So I'm just going to put glue right down the side. So I'm just putting a very small amount of glue on the side, and then I'm going to go across the bottom, and then I'm going to put a little bit on the other side, and then I'm going to line this up to the bottom here and press it into place. And I want this one up here, it's going to open in the opposite direction, so I'm going to put glue on this side. So there is our envelope so far, but let's make a couple of cards to put inside, and let's make a tie to go on it as well. I've got a couple of cards that I have cut to be 3 1/4 inches by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half about. Only because that was just the size of my pocket that's in here. And I'm just going to go around the edges really fast with some distress ink. So I'm grabbing another one of these gel prints because I want to embellish the tops of these. So I'm going to trim this and cut some 1-inch strips. I'm just going to trim these to be the same length as our cards. I'm going to add some distress ink to the edges of, as I throw my ink pad, around the edge of these gel prints. And then I'm going to adhere these across the tops here. Alright, now that I've got those adhered together, I'm going to use the Shabby Stitches and stamp on this journal card, these journal cards. So there is one journal card. And here is another journal card. And then let's make a tie to go around the whole thing. So I'm going to close this up. I've got some seam binding, Snug Hug is what it's called. I just buy it in white or ivory because I have Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist, and I know that I can change the colors So I'm just kind of gauging how much I need in order to tie it into a pretty bow. And I find that if I just go ahead and tie it off and maybe cut just a little bit extra, I get the right amount. Because there's nothing like cutting too short of a piece. So now that I've cut this piece, I've got my little spray box here, and I'm going to lay it inside the box. And I'm going to grab some colors of Tattered Angels. These are colors that I have in my shop. This is part of the Royal Peacock kit, and this is the Royal Peacock paint kit that's called Purple Peacock, and this one's called Royal Peacock. So I'm going to shake these up because they've got mica in them, and it's going to add a little bit of shimmer, but it's also going to add color. So I'm going to spray all over with the teal, kind of turning it every once in a while to kind of help get the color all the way around. And then I'm going to add some of this purple. Add some more of the teal. It'll dry lighter than it is, so I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it, and I'll be back. Alright, so this is dry now, so I can take this and wrap it around a couple of times and tie it into a bow. And now I have a envelope letter pocket that I can add to my junk journal. Let me show you the others again so you kind of get an idea of the differences. The one on my right, I use the Shabby Stitches stamp set. The one on my left, I used my sewing machine and sewed around it. It's the same concept, different gel prints, using the same stamping techniques. This one, when I made the journal cards, I just used some washi tape at the top. This one I had a little bit more mixed media colors that I added to it. And then this one, again, is using the gel prints. I did sew around it, but this time I did a different type of pocket. So this one, I added a piece of fabric. I made a journal card out of a different piece of paper. And then I made a pocket going this way so that we could put a few things like this bookmark. That's a Beeline Designs butterfly stamp. This is from the same set. There's 4 of them in that set. And I used another gel print. This is a little envelope, so you could use this, if I can get it back open, to put little things in that you want to remember. And then here's another little journal card that fits down here. So there's 3 little pockets there. So those are a couple of ideas of how to use these gel prints, these mixed media pages, to make a little element. There'll be more tutorials coming, so be sure to check those out. Again, if you're watching during the retreat, we thank you so much for being a part of it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing this after the fact. So you definitely want to check out the next time that we do a virtual retreat so you can be involved with this at the time that it all is live at the event. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please ask those questions. We'll be here to help you. If you have comments that you want to make about the project, ideas that you like to use when you're doing mixed media pieces, love to hear those as well. Again, check the description box for links to my groups, as well as my YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all those good things. Thanks so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Bye, everybody.